UNDP set out to build the world's largest and fastest learning network on sustainable development challenges. In less than a year, we did just that. 60 lab teams covering 78 countries are now up and running in UNDP offices, doing development differently. We accelerate learning by creating actionable intelligence and testing solutions. We strengthen capabilities by supporting decision makers to explore, experiment, and grow portfolios. We adapt to change by expanding the way UNDP invests, thinks about, and delivers development. We look for what's next by scanning the horizon. The network is comprised of fast and curious labbers. 72% are brand new to the UN system. 24% are returning to their home countries to solve development challenges. 63% have experience in ethnographic research. Our award-winning teams are helping UNDP reimagine sustainable development for the 21st century. In this time of planetary crisis, when best practices don't always exist, we need to learn what works and what doesn't for sustainable development problems in a matter of weeks, not years. That's what this agile network is about. When COVID-19 hit, governments had limited information, no blueprints, but had opportunities to work with people innovating to stop the spread of the virus. The Accelerator Labs have powered UNDP for fast action. UNDP Sudan identified insights about behavioral patterns such as panic buying and stockpiling.
The most exciting part of our project is that we designed it and we did the data collection in just under 2 days.
UNDP Ethiopia used foresight to imagine how COVID-19 will impact industrial parks.
Here in Ethiopia, we used foresight to understand how the newly developed industrial parks would be affected by the pandemic.
UNDP Philippines used real-time data visualization to help assess the impact of the pandemic on excluded citizens.
In the Philippines, we used messenger chatbots and other digital tools in tandem with community organizing to give the vulnerable a greater voice in the assessment of the socio-economic impacts of COVID-19.
UNDP Argentina helped design financial solutions for small entrepreneurs impacted by the crisis.
Pay in Advance is a social media campaign from the Argentine Accelerator Lab. It encourages consumers to pay in advance goods and services so they can get them after the lockdown ends.
The way Accelerator Labs apply cutting-edge behavioral insights, support real-time data, and create future-proof policy advice is becoming an integral part of UNDP's contribution to the UN-wide response to COVID-19 and its economic legacy. Looking towards the future, the world's largest network of labs is growing and looking for partnerships with governments, businesses, and academia. Join us.
Good morning, everyone. May I begin, ladies and gentlemen, by welcoming all of you here to the launch event of the Accelerator Lab of UNDP Thailand. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that we all are living in interesting times. At the beginning of 2020, the pace of change was already accelerating when the COVID-19 crisis took just few weeks to challenge societal and entrepreneurial norms. While current events are by varying degrees inconvenient or distressing for large numbers of people, we can truly take heart from the collective resilience and adaptability of society to respond to what we are facing. As the need for a different approach for problem-solving techniques were felt even before COVID-19 crisis, a vital part of this effort, the UNDP, with the support from the Federal Republic of Germany, the State of Qatar, represented by the Carter Fund for Development and UNDP's core partners, set out in 2019 to build the world's largest and fastest learning network to bring innovative solutions to sustainable development challenges, which is named the Accelerator Lab. The ultimate aim of the UNDP Accelerator Lab is to provide partners with entirely new approaches to address complex problems by unleashing the power of collective intelligence, local innovations, and experimentation with the aim of creating an actual synergy. Under the Accelerator Lab, grassroots solutions have been explored and their potential has been extended to accelerate development. Experimentation then helps to learn whether particular assumptions are accurate before deploying them at scale, especially in the rapidly evolving context that often dominate development progress. In the specific case of Thailand, the UNDP Accelerator Lab will play a leading role within the country office together with the partners in analyzing pertinent challenges within the local context to identify connections and patterns in search of new avenues of work to address multiple developmental challenges. Together with the newly established Thailand Policy Lab or TP Lab, which represent a collaboration between UNDP and the Office of the National Economic and Social Development Council, the Accelerator Lab will bring the government to the table, support the government for innovative ways of working, and legitimize existing initiatives as well as social innovators. For today, the launch event is conducted virtually, but however, we still want to reach out and interact with everyone out there. So please feel free to leave the comment or recommendation in the chat box below, as your recommendation from everyone will be truly useful for all of us. Moreover, today we also have the Thai interpreter, so you also can switch to listen to the Thai version as your preference. And now, Mr. Reno Meyer, who is the resident representative of UNDP in Thailand, will address his welcoming remarks. Please join me in welcoming him. Handing over to you, Reno. The floor is yours.
Sawadee Krap. Very good morning to all of you. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of the whole UNDP team to welcome you for this launch event. This is very much a milestone for us here in UNDP Thailand, a milestone on how we do development with many of you involved. Just 20 years ago, UNDP at its executive board presented a first paper that was entitled The Role of UNDP on Information Technologies for Development. In this document, which I was rereading last night, very interestingly, UNDP was focusing on bringing the internet to some of the developing countries, helping countries, member states, draft their first national information technology strategies. Clearly, in 20 years, so much has changed. Technologies are so much more complex and different today, and the internet is just the foundation for many of them to have come and improved our lives and the way we work, but also the way we are on this planet. At the same time, the problems that we are facing as citizens of planet Earth have also become so much more complex, more interconnected, more multi-sectoral. And therefore, the solutions that we have to bring to member states and countries are also need to be different. They cannot just be straitjacketed. They cannot be just one approach. They really have to be integrated and show the diversity of the different elements that come together to bring those long-term and sustainable solutions. COVID-19, which is upon us still, is just one illustration of this. So we need to change as an organization to remain relevant, and we need to be up the game. And this is the part that has not changed. What has not changed is UNDP's commitment and UNDP's resolve to be on the side of developing countries, to continue helping them, assisting them on their pathway to development. This is why this Accelerator Lab network of labs across so many countries around the world is such an important tool for us. And from being an add-on to UNDP just a few days ago. It has now become a core function. I would even say it has become the strategy of UNDP in delivering technical assistance by making sure that this assistance is always up to the best it can bring. This requires the support, the partnerships of many of you. And as we will see during this launch, we have here in Thailand already mobilized a lot of the key players of the ecosystem of innovation. Of course, we will hear from our government partner, and I want to thank NExpo for taking the lead together with NESDC on really coming with us on this journey. But a whole of society is needed now to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So it is critical that we also bring partners from the private sector, and we have the pleasure of having our friends from Krung Thai Bank with us today, and also of civil society, of the communities out there. And we will hear an example, a great example from one of them joining us in the panel discussion later this morning. So I hope you will feel the same excitement as we all feel in the UNDP Thailand family. As we launch officially today this Accelerator Lab, we invite you all to coming and take part of this new journey. And we are confident that with the ambition, but also the energy that we feel together with the support of our key partners, we will be able to make a difference. I don't want to finish without acknowledging and really thanking the great support that we have received from 2 member states, Germany and Qatar, and we'll have the pleasure of hearing from their embassies here in Bangkok as we close this event, but also the many partners at core of UNDP who are making this journey possible. With this, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us this morning for this launch. We're excited to be here. We really look forward for the next weeks and months where we will bring as many of you as possible to identify the solutions that will make a difference to the complex challenges that Thailand is facing in this very uncertain world. But together we are committed, we have the resolve to find those solutions. Thank you very much, and Kapung Khap.
Thank you, Mr. Reno, for your welcoming words. Next up, we will watch a video clip in which Ms. Kani Vignaraja, the Assistant Secretary General and also the Assistant Administrator and Director of the Regional Bureau for Asia and the Pacific UNDP, will add her opening remarks, handing over to Ms. Vignaraja.
Excellencies, partners and colleagues, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the launch of the UNDP Accelerator Lab in Thailand. Due to COVID-19, our world is dealing with much more complex, even confusing development challenges than ever seen before. From economic slumps to intensifying climate risks and fast rising new inequalities, these forces are colliding and upending lives and livelihoods for so many, both in Thailand and across our region. Now, through 2020 and now in 2021, we see the stalling or reversing of human development progress in our region. So the urgency to push for more sustainability and well-being is even greater than before. And innovation means trying fresh approaches to tackle old and new problems, being open to new ideas, using different methods, new data and technologies. It means not being afraid to test and to try, sometimes to fail, and then to try again. This is what the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development calls on. And this is why the SDGs prioritize science, technology, and innovation as critical enablers of development. Without innovation, we are unlikely to achieve the SDGs by 2030. The Accelerator Labs are a vital part and our response to the SDGs through the lens of innovation. So I thank Ambassador George Smith of Germany and Ambassador Ahmed bin Ali Al Tamimi of Qatar, who are in attendance with us today. With the support from Germany, the Qatar Fund for Development, and UNDP's core partners, we have now set up over 90 Accelerator Labs in 115 countries across all regions of the world. Thailand has had a very rich and vibrant innovation ecosystem that includes players from government, the private sector, academia, and civil society. These efforts and the way they interrelate have transformed the economy and society in so many ways. The Thai government has facilitated these efforts through special initiatives and financing to keep stimulating innovation, to urge faster and drive deeper on issues around sustainability. For instance, by establishing the Thailand Policy Lab, a joint collaboration between the NESDC and UNDP, it has accelerated innovation in the public sector. Our Accelerator Lab will work closely with the Thailand Policy Lab to bring experimentation and evidence to support policymaking and to prototype scalable solutions by applying behavioral insights, new data science, ethnographic methods, and other innovative approaches. So please join us as we embark on this exciting journey to explore, to experiment, and to co-create solutions. We hope that Thailand will benefit from this effort at solution seeking to meet the demands of a 21st century development agenda. In closing, my appreciation and recognition of the Royal Thai government for its leadership and commitment to innovation and the continued support and trust placed in UNDP. I look forward to our Accelerator Lab in Thailand, working with all of you, our partners in the country and around the world. Thank you.
On behalf of us here in attendance, I would like to thank Ms. Vignaraja for your contribution. We are now transitioning to the keynote address by Dr. Kittipong Pramwong, the President of the Office of the National Higher Education Science Research and Innovation Policy Council. Currently, Dr. Kittipong is in charge of reforming national policy on a wide range of issues: higher education, science, technology, and innovation, and also formulating a number of strategic programs and initiatives related to innovation and technology. With respect, we are moving over to Dr. Kittipong ค่ะ
with hunger and bad health. So to achieve the SDGs, we must accelerate our efforts to eradicate poverty. In Thailand, in the recent survey by NESDC shows that we have almost 1 million people living in poverty. So could the Accelerator Lab help finding the fastest way to lift these people out of poverty? Perhaps starting with 10 poorest provinces in Thailand for the next 5 years. Indeed, NXPO is working on formulating the National Higher Education Science Research and Innovation Policy and Strategy for the period of the 13th NESDC plan. We propose on the targets, one of them is to use higher education, science, research, and innovation, especially innovation, to help eradicate poverty in the 10 poorest provinces. I think this is an important one. Unlike many other middle-income countries, Thailand has set an ambitious goal to get out of the middle-income trap. The question is, how can we do it in not so long time? I think probably we need to transform the countries to become the value-based, innovation-driven economy. With technological disruption, the key question is how we empower our enterprises and entrepreneurs with science, technology, and innovation to capture new demands and business opportunities. Thailand has our first unicorn this month, if you follow the news, and it is a challenge for us to ask ourselves, could we set goals to have few more unicorns and also few hundreds more technology enterprises in the next 5 years. To get out of the middle income trap, I think there is no other way than trying to increase the number of technology enterprises, and especially to scale them up, either from SMEs or from startups. The government also needs to play their part in concerted effort by providing conducive and enabling environments so that new innovation can grow. The UNDP Accelerator Lab could be very instrumental to help provide policy advice and also mechanism design to achieve this aim. Another point which I would like to emphasize on is about the green economy. The environment issues are gaining more and more international attention lately. Thailand needs to accelerate our pace in minimizing waste and promoting resource efficiency, as well as transition to circular economy. The circular economy is another important issue for Thailand, and also we propose this into our new higher education, science, research, and innovation policy and strategy as well. The aim is trying to reduce at least 1/4 of the use of natural resources and to reduce the greenhouse gas 25%. This is another area that I urge we to work together as the environment issue is borderless and has long-term impact in our quality of life. The last point I would like to make a remark is about the human capital. We need to equip our future generation with right skill sets, both technical and soft science, for the future jobs in the 21st century. In particular, the women and people underprivileged, and make sure that we leave no one behind. Ladies and gentlemen, our understanding on the impact of COVID-19 crisis and its implications on economic and social development continue to unfold. We have seen in Thailand and around the world that times of crisis bring out the best people. To my knowledge, a number of policy labs and accelerator labs have been set up around the world and in Thailand. Mentioning about the human capital, I think talents are important issues. So instead of trying to fight among each other to attract talents, I think it's better to facilitate the mobility of talents around the world, provide environment, ecosystem for them to work in a high and productive way. Should be a good strategy for us to work together. Talent, they can move around and they also can work from anywhere, and we all benefit in the win-win situation. The UNDP Accelerator Lab can play a tremendous role to connect those labs to work together to accelerate development process and recovery from the pandemic of the COVID-19. In particular, in the policy domain, we need to collaborate in terms of both policy setting as well as the design of mechanism to create favorable ecosystem for people, for innovators to work together, for entrepreneurs to work together. It is also important that we unleash the creative mind of our best policymakers, scientists, and social innovators, so they can feel the energy of they can feel the engine of science, technology, and innovation, which are the key to overcome the complexity of today's challenges and make faster progress on the sustainable development goals. With that note, I would like to conclude my address. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your contribution, Dr. Kittipong. At this point, we will go over to one of the most important parts of today's event, which is the introduction of Accelerator Lab in Thailand and its survey result by the team, which prioritize and identify the scope of issues that the lab will be working on. The Accelerator Lab team is represented here by Ms. Aphinya Siranat, Head of Exploration, and Mr. Nattapon Rathi, Head of Experimentation. Both of them are the key persons of the Accelerator Lab of Thailand. Handing over to both of you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Aphinya Siranat, the Head of Exploration at UNDP Accelerator Lab in Thailand. And it is my great pleasure to be here to introduce you to the UNDP Accelerator Lab network and how the lab is going to work to support Thailand in accelerating its progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I have a slide, so okay, the slide is coming. Next slide, please. So let me begin by addressing these questions. Why are the Accelerator Lab is needed and why it has to be now? Next slide, please. As our regional director, Kani, mentioned in her speech this morning, the speed, dynamics, and complexity of today's challenges are fundamentally different from previous eras in history. We are now facing a set of social and environmental challenges which are more complex, interconnected, and fast-moving than ever before. And most of the time, these challenges are getting worse despite our best efforts to address them. The COVID-19 pandemic is a clear example here. While our current approach has been making progress against the 20th century challenges, but as you can see from the graph here, our current approaches are not enough to address and make progress against the 21st century challenges, let alone to achieve the SDGs by 2030. And for us, as a development practitioner, this means in order to address these complex and interconnected challenges, it doesn't just require new solutions, it requires new strategies for understanding these challenges and new approaches to identifying solutions. It requires addressing not just the problem in front of us, but also the broader environment that led us to this problem. And overall, we need to reimagine the way we do development for the 21st century. Next slide, please. And as you may see, these complex challenges leave us with three key questions. First, how do we better tackle complex and fast-moving challenges? Second, how do we find the most relevant solutions that work locally? And third, how do we learn more quickly about what works and what doesn't? And these questions are also telling us that we at UNDP have to change and disrupt the way we work. And we have to move away from traditional settings, traditional approaches to development challenges. And the Accelerator Lab is our answer to these questions. And this is why back in 2019, UNDP built the Accelerator Lab network with a vision for it to become the world's largest and fastest learning network on sustainable development challenges. The Accelerator Labs are part of our effort to inject innovation into our organizational DNA, to collaborate with national partners to address today's new challenges. And I would like to emphasize the word learning here because the Accelerator Labs are set up to learn and explore how to do things differently to address these 21st century challenges. Next slide, please. And when we start back in 2019, there were 50 labs in the first cohort. And these labs have done an amazing job in supporting countries where they have a presence to address development challenges. And that's why UNDP, we decided to set up the second cohort of labs in 2021. And Thailand is also selected to be part of the second cohort. Today, with the support of the state of Qatar through the Qatar Fund for Development and the Federal Republic of Germany, the Accelerator Lab network comprised of 91 labs in 115 countries around the world, as you may see from the map here. The network is up and running and creating new capabilities for national partners to respond to exponential changes and 21st century challenges. Next slide, please. So let me go over what is the Accelerator Lab and how do we work in practice. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, the lab is part of UNDP efforts to become the world's largest and fastest learning network around development challenges. Therefore, unlike other accelerator labs that you may be familiar with, especially those from the startup world, our labs are not technology labs and do not accelerate startups or particular technologies, but rather our accelerator labs were created to accelerate learning about what works and what doesn't in development, so that we can get faster results on the ground. Today, 91 labs around the world are testing not just new solutions, but also new ways of working to address social and environmental challenges. Being part of a globally integrated network allows each lab to draw inspiration from both local solutions and solutions being identified by the global network. And the fact that countries are often facing similar challenges, be it air pollution, waste management, and so on, these also allow multiple labs to work on a challenge in parallel and benefit from each other learning in real time, and therefore creating a powerful collective learning effect. Next slide, please. So how do the Accelerator Lab work in practice? The Accelerator Lab continuously look through 4 key activities. As you may see from the slide here, sense, explore, test, and then we grow. And these are our learning cycle. So let's have a look what does this mean in practice. Next slide, please. Next slide. So sense is about understanding what are emerging challenges and opportunities in the local context and determining where we need to focus our attention on. Together with partners, the lab will analyze the local context challenges to identify connections and patterns to anticipate new avenues of work and act effectively to accelerate development. And we do that by, firstly, engaging with communities to learn from their everyday experience and look for grassroots innovations to identify unmet needs. Second, we conduct scanning the horizon for weak signals of change that may have a large impact on a population. And thirdly, we are looking at a broader portfolio of work and initiatives to identify gaps, synergies, and opportunities. And lastly, we map the ecosystem to understand the level of change and identify the unusual suspect. So what does this mean in practice? For example, in Zimbabwe, the country was under the reform and went through the transition period. The Accelerator Lab team there was asked by the President's Office to use sense making to help the full cabinet of 22 ministries to map and understand the patterns in how the reform was experienced on the ground, and from this to identify new avenue of work to support the government transitioning period. And through this exercise, informal economy was emerged from our pattern identification exercise. Next slide, please. And next is explore. Explore is about better understanding the challenge and looking for solutions, particularly by looking at how citizens are already addressing these challenges and opportunities. To understand the challenge better, we apply collective intelligence approach by looking for new sources of data that we haven't yet accessed and tap into a wider pool of input and expertise to identify our gaps, assumptions. And in practice, this means the lab will harness the potential real-time and citizen-generated data for better decision-making to solve development problems. And let me give you some examples. In Sudan, we work with the National Telecom Corporation and big data analytics experts to test using phone metadata to complement official statistics and provide more granular data for measurement of progress in addressing multidimensional poverty. In Ecuador, we use satellite image to identify forest-friendly cattle raising practices. Or in Uganda, we tap into collective intelligence of illegal loggers, firewood sellers, school officials, religion leaders, and security agencies to understand deforestation. And for us, in order to explore existing solutions, we conduct solution mapping exercise, which is about learning from communities how they solve problems. Instead of having external experts devise off-the-shelf solutions, the labs are applying this approach to learn what is known already by identifying local innovators who have already developed workable solutions to address challenges that their communities are facing. And when we talk about solutions here, they can come in many different forms, from a farmers discovering a new way to prevent floods to grassroots innovations in health, energy, and water management. And for example, in Namibia, the government has declared a national state of emergency because of ongoing and persistent drought. And the Accelerator Lab there support the government by mapping grassroots solutions to combat the country's water crisis. And through this exercise, one of the solutions identified was repurposed seaweed found along the coast to produce poultry feed products. And as you can easily imagine, in a region where drought conditions compromise livestock productivity, farmers' income, and farmer livelihood, this innovative poultry feed products is pivotal. Next slide, please. And the next step is test. The lab will design and conduct experiments, allow portfolio of solutions rather than one individual solution, to learn about what works and what doesn't in weeks or months rather than years. We are applying systematic process and designing a portfolio of experiments which involve the design arrangements of solutions and interconnected interventions that work together to shift the needles toward a desired or more positive outcome. Let me give you an example of how we apply a portfolio approach in practice. For example, in Skopje, the Northern Macedonia, which is among one of the top 10 most polluted cities in Europe, we support the City Innovation Lab in developing a variety of experiments, designing a portfolio of solutions to tackle air pollution. This includes citizen-generated data to understand the issue, an online calculator to help citizens make informed energy consumption choices, and a foresight tool to demonstrate the possible future impact of different actions to combat air pollution. In Namibia, we test out electric vehicles to reduce cost of ownership and explore options for using the car to provide energy backup during local outrage. Or in Fiji, we did an experiment with way to change students' plastic consumption in school. Next, please. And the last step is grow. Grow is about diffusing innovation, spreading the insights and ways of working with partners to scale the impact. When we talk about grow, it goes beyond replicating one single solution in new locations. We are not only incubating single solutions to reach many, but it takes the whole ecosystem to scale impact. So we map and engage with the full ecosystem and create partnerships that drive and balance the portfolio. And here we are referring to 3 dimensions of scaling. First is to scale out, meaning that we try to increase geographical coverage after an exploratory data project. Second, to scale up, we change national data policy to recognize new data. And lastly, to scale deep, meaning that we change the way the resource allocation decisions are being made. Within each country lab, scale can be reached in 3 ways. First is to have an influence on development programming. Second, influence on government policy. And lastly, to spin off the lab initiative into independent ventures. So let me give you an example of how we grow from the experiment and the portfolio of solutions that we've been working on. For example, in Vietnam, we did a waste sorting experiment in one small community. But after testing that the solution that we're trying to do actually works, we then working with Da Nang municipality to implement our portfolio of solutions across the municipality. In Philippines, we are also pursuing change in the national innovation law to recognize grassroots innovations and its importance. Next slide, please. So through this 4 steps of learning cycle, the Accelerator Labs allow UNDP to offer new services to our national partner to better tackle complex sustainable development problems. And these new services are, as I mentioned earlier, first, sense making, second, collective intelligence, third, solution mapping, and lastly, applying for portfolio approach to development challenges. Next slide, please. And the way we work through this learning cycle allow us to be agile, and be able to respond very quickly to challenges. When the COVID hit the world last year, the lab was able to support countries around the world to tackle the pandemic. As you may see here, we are able to provide health system support through developing digital solutions to help the public cope with COVID-19, such as games to inform people how to behave during COVID as a means to flattening the curve, developing self-checker applications, or even chatbot to answer pandemic inquiries. And we also do a bit of prototype on 3D mask printing. Next slide, please. So overall, given our learning cycle and the way we work, how can Thailand benefit from the Accelerator Lab? Next slide, please. So the way we see it is that Thailand can benefit from the Accelerator Lab for 4 key ways. First is the reason that we value local expertise and build on what works locally. The lab leverage expertise from everywhere, especially by valuing those in communities facing social and environmental challenges as experts. The lab identify people who have addressed solutions locally in addition to tapping into collective knowledge of the 91 labs globally. Second, we elevate and co-design with new problem solvers. The labs create a constructive way of working with local experts in communities, particularly local problem solvers who are not normally visible, alongside more formally recognized experts to address social and environmental challenges. By finding and tapping individual problem solvers in local communities, the Accelerator Labs identify a new set of innovators that can help address social and environmental challenges. Third, convening across sectors. The Accelerator Lab can convene parties that might not normally collaborate and that might need neutral ground to start collaborating, such as government, the private sector, and NGOs. Fourth, the lab helps the country become better at tackling unknown or complex challenges. The labs provide the capability to learn about what works and what doesn't in uncertain policy space in weeks or months rather than years. This creates the unique ability to tackle uncertain and rapidly shifting problems. Ultimately, these approaches to problem solving lead to a portfolio of solutions that are more effective at tackling complex and fast-moving challenges. And together with the newly established Thailand Policy Lab, a collaboration between UNDP and the Royal Thai government through the Office of the National Economic and Social Development Council, the Accelerator Lab will become instrumental in creating a new capability for decision makers to explore, experiment, and grow a portfolio of mutually reinforcing solutions that plug into the needs of modern societies and ultimately to create a sustainable future for all. Next slide, please. And before I pass the floor to my colleague, I would like to end my presentation with this quote from Michael Scott, which reflects very well the way of our working and also the reason why the lab is placing so much emphasis on portfolio approach, the portfolio of experiments. Innovation amateurs talk good ideas, innovation experts talk testable hypotheses. With this, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kun Apinya. So this is the part that many of you that have registered are waiting for. We have collected the survey data during 10 to 18 of July along with the RSVP. And there are 210 respondents from wide-ranging organizations such as public sectors, international organizations, civil society organizations, and academia. And here is the result. The most important question is, what is the most critical and urgent topic in Thailand? We are in the middle of the pandemic, so no wonder that the number one challenge is about economy at 30% of the respondents, followed by environment issue at 26.2%, and social issue at 22.8%, and political issue at 21%. Let's see into the details. When we look into the detail for economic issue, 63.6% is economic downturn from the COVID-19. 14.6% is about reducing individual income. 14.3% is about increasing unemployment. And 7.3% is about SME, which is temporarily or permanently shut down. And talking about environmental issue, 53%, this is a very interesting one. They talk about the air pollution issue. 25.5% mention the climate change. 11.8% is about waste management. And 8.7% is about forest encroachment. And on the issues related to society, 44.3% mentioning about the income inequality. 32.7% talking about vulnerable population affected by the pandemic, and 23% is about quality of education. Last but not least is about political issues. 67.1% is about corruption, and 18.6% is about political unrest. And 14.3% is about the ineffectiveness of the government measures. And who are the most impacted by these challenges? Almost 80% said all Thai population are impacted by these challenges, but some even specify more, like on the issue of SME and vulnerable groups, such as low-income population, elderly and their family, as well as the youth. And for the final question, who are the key stakeholders of these challenges? You can see that in the red area, more than half at 54.1% considered these challenges from holistic approach and said everyone is the key stakeholder. But interestingly, 41.4% identify to the government. So based on this survey, what would be the challenges that the Accelerator Lab would take action on? Our entry point for the challenges on the environmental issue, we will tackle the air pollution issue as it affected a lot of people in the north, such as farmers, indigenous people, as well as mother and children. In terms of social and economic, to create social cohesion, we will focus on those who affected the most by the pandemic, including aging population, youths, and people with disabilities. And for government and democracy, to enhance transparency and effectiveness, we will use digital technology to transform public service delivery and provide our expertise to support the Thailand Policy Lab at UNDP. Our key message, as you can see, is about innovating development for all. And if you notice from the beginning of the launch today, there are lots of fishes swimming around this launch. What is it? This is a barb fish or pla tapian in Thai, which is an important food in Thai cuisine. It is indigenous to Thailand. The fish grow to full size around the same time that rice is ready for harvesting. We call that period in Thai, Khao Mai Pla Man, or new rice and delicious fish. So the fish represent the abundance and prosperity. In rural area, you still can see people using Pla Tapian shaped mobile to bless their children with good health and prosperity. So we use the Pla Tapian as a symbol of the Accelerator Lab Thailand to represent how the lab search for grassroots innovation, explore collective intelligence, and experiment to achieve sustainable development goals by 2030. But the lab itself cannot do this on our own. So please join us. Our partners are at the heart of the UNDP Accelerator Lab network. They provide strategic advice, expertise, and financial resource. They extend their capabilities and reach out the network and help direct it by investing in this joint venture. So we are looking for partners to join us in investing and contributing knowledge to this global effort. If you would like to collaborate with us, please contact us and let's innovate and accelerate development together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Upinya and Mr. Natapon for the introduction of your work and the finding of the lab survey that show the prioritized challenges in Thailand. Also, the concept of the barfish as a symbol really reflects your work so well. To date, UNDP has set up 91 Accelerator Labs in 115 countries across the world. And at a very timely establishment, as Kun Apinya mentioned, when COVID-19 hit, UNDP Accelerator Lab have already brought the innovative solutions. The labs diversify how UNDP captures information, such as using satellite data to combat the deforestation and employing ethnography to understand the impact of COVID-19 on vulnerable communities. In our neighboring country like Cambodia, the lab combined traditional and less used data sources such as phone calls, survey data, social media data, and mobile phone GPS data to better understand the economic challenges faced by informal workers across the country during the COVID-19 pandemic. Or in Togo, the lab also developed speech-to-text data analysis of radio conversation in 5 local languages to curate health content for communities that can't reach TV or social media. These are the few examples of how the Accelerator Lab have brought the innovative solutions to the emerging and unforeseen challenges, which the Accelerator Lab in Thailand also aims to introduce innovative solutions to our nation as well. And now the time is right for a panel discussion on the topic of innovation journey towards a sustainable and inclusive Thai society. For today, we have 4 panel members. The first one is Dr. Chayathorn Limapornwanit, the Director of the Department of Innovation Strategy at the National Innovation Agency or NIA. The second one is Mr. Grit Chamapisit, the Executive Vice President and Head of Communication and Branding at Krung Thai Bank. And the third one, Associate Professor Dr. Oraon Pujaran, the Director of the the School of Public Policy at Chiang Mai University. And the fourth one, Mr. Naveen Nakwachara, the founder of the Grassroots Innovation Company in Thailand. The panel discussion will be moderated by the Honorable Ms. Lovita Rankuti, the Deputy Representative of the UNDP in Thailand. During the panel discussion, the feedback and recommendations from everyone are very welcome, so please feel free to leave them in the chat box below. So now I am handing over to you, Lovita.
Swadika, good morning everyone. It's my pleasure to moderate this session today on innovation journey for a sustainable and inclusive Thai society. We have with us today 4 distinguished panelists who will be sharing with us their perspective and good practices when it comes to the role of innovation in advancing social development, and with a very specific focus on the most vulnerable and the marginalized groups in Thailand. They will also talk to us about opportunities and challenges that innovation represent for societies and the role that the government can play in putting in place enabling conditions to advance social progress and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And finally, they will also share with us today their perspective on the role that the UNDP Accelerator Lab can play in terms of leveraging innovation to achieve sustainable development for all in Thailand. So without further ado, let me start with the first round of this panel discussion and to invite our panelists to tell us very briefly a little bit about themselves, the work that their organization does, and the background. So let me start by inviting Professor Oraon, who is the Director of the School of Public Policy from the Chiang Mai University, to first address us. The floor is yours, Professor.
hear me now? Let me.
Yes.
Yes. In another room, they can't hear you. Wait a second, I'm checking right now. Is it okay? We can hear you now. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me start over. Thank you very much, Lovita, and the UNDP team, Mr. Reynolds too, of course, for having me on this panel. I think this session is very exciting because it's the launching of the UNDP Accelerator Lab program, which already exists around the world, and it's starting to exist in Thailand. And I'm very happy and excited to be part of that. So I am the director of the School of Public Policy at Chiang Mai University. At our School of Public Policy, we have set up 3 years ago, and our motto is inclusive, innovative, and progressive. So actually, we work on public policies and both the design and its mechanisms. We focus on democracy, we focus on diversity, and we have our 3Ds that we try to advocate, which is to rethink and set new defaults for the country, to incorporate stakeholders for the redesigning of different policies, and of course to promote deliberation of different worldviews so that we can continuously learn about each other's views. So we work with UNDP, we work with private sector such as Facebook, internationals such as Fraunhofer, as well as other UN family like UNICEF. We work closely also with the Thai government as well, like NUSDC and the Office of Public Sector Development Commission too. So that's all for short introduction from our School of Public Policy at Chiang Mai University. Thank you.
So Raon, let me now ask Dr. Chayathorn to come in to share with us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do. Over to you, Dr. Chayathorn.
Hi, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate to UNDP for the launching of Acceleration Lab and also the establishment of the Thai Policy Lab as well. For NAA, my name is Chayathorn Limapormanit. I am the Director of Strategic Innovation Department, NAA. For NAA, we are a government agency under the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation. Basically, our role is mainly to promote and facilitate the innovation in Thailand. We try to enhance innovation system to a sustainable value. Our mission is to strengthen innovation Thailand system. The second one is to create opportunity and increase access to innovation infrastructure for the corporate or the organization who would like to develop innovation in their business or in the society. The third one is about upgrade skill and innovation capability in Thailand at large. Basically, our work is we try to work as a bridger or system integrator to matching between the supply side and demand side. Because when we talk about innovation, it means that you need some new creativity or some new knowledge and apply it to the needs of society, the needs of business. And sometimes in some complex system, they have the problem between linking them together from supply side and demand side. We work with the government, we work with the university, we work with the researcher in order to tap the knowledge from the supply side. And we also work with the demand side like the corporate, the SME, and also the community level in order to transfer the knowledge from the supply side and apply them into the demand side. Basically, we provide them the support and mechanism in form of financial support, networking support, and also technical support as well. So that's all for the first round. Thank you.
So much, Dr. Chayathorn, for sharing with us the work that the National Innovation Agency does in Thailand. Next, I would like to invite Kunkrit, who's the first Executive Vice President, Head of Marketing and Branding from Krung Thai Bank. The floor is yours, Kunkrit.
Thank you, Robita. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gritchama Pisit. I'm the head of marketing and branding at Krung Thai. We are the state-run commercial bank, so we are often involved in the implementation of the public policy and the government scheme. We have developed Baotang and Tungneun mobile application, which are the open platform for Thais. They has become now the talk of the town as you need them to get the rights from the government. As a result, we have uplifted digital knowledge and literacy, as well as build the digital infrastructure to serve Thailand 4.0. That's a very short brief for me.
Concrete. Last but not least, let me invite Kun Navi, who is the founder of Grassroots Innovation Company. Over to you, Kun Navi.
Okay, thank you. สวัสดีครับผมชื่อนาวีนาพัชรา
Very good morning. My name is Navina Pachara. I am the managing director of the company that you just said, and we are legally registered company. We have been operating for 12 years. We primarily focus on the agricultural innovation, but later on we changed into to be the incubation consulting firm, supporting community activities and the social activities in the rural areas, especially the issue that involve with the community innovation. We are the enterprise that got support from many agencies, from Can Thailand Public Company Limited, from National Innovation Agency and Chain Fusion Institution for operating such activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kun Navi, for this brief introduction. Let me now move on to the second part, the second round of this panel conversation, which will have a focus on the Sustainable Development Goals. I think many of us know already, but just to confirm that the Addis Ababa Action Agenda and the 2030 Agenda has firmly established the importance of science, technology, and innovation in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And in this round of our discussion, we would like to hear from our esteemed panelists examples of innovation that can contribute to sustainable development based on the experience. So to all our panelists, the question that we have today is, how do innovation, even in its simplest form, help solve problems and tackle development? If you could give us one or two concrete examples from your own experience, that would be very useful. And the focus can actually be on policies that have been implemented to foster the development of innovation, or policies and solutions that enable access by all to appropriate innovative solution in different SDG areas. So to kickstart this conversation, let me first of all invite Dr. Chayathorn to address us. Dr. Chayathorn, the floor is yours.
Okay, sorry again. Actually, for NA, as I mentioned, that we are the promoter for innovation in Thailand. One of innovation area that we focus and start to develop the stakeholder and start to develop with the partner in the last 3 years is the area of social innovation. Basically, social innovation is quite different from business innovation, because most of the business innovation, they try to make a uniqueness for their business by using a technology and try to acquire the market share, try to make the profit from the business. But for the social innovation, the concept is quite different. They use the new idea and the new knowledge as well, but the main goal is to improve the quality of life, community, and environment. For the social innovation at NAA, we also following the goal of UN SDG goal, 17 goal of SDG. We adopt the SDG goal, and then we try to identify the social sector that have a potential in Thailand. We identify in 3 areas. Today, we're gonna have some showcase in some specific sector to show that how knowledge or new idea can use to solve the social problem. We target to beneficial groups such as social enterprise, farmer, SME, or maybe civil society who like to find a solution to solve the problem in their communities. We provide them through the mechanism like financial support, technology network, and also a link with the solution provider in case that they are looking for some new idea. The criteria is mainly about the life, community, and environment. I would like to take this opportunity to show you a couple cases of the social innovation that we support in the last 3 years. The first one is the name of the project or the name of the platform is Food Warrior. It is a management system of unsellable food transportation for donation. Basically for like a hotel or maybe the supermarket. They have like an expiration date on the food product, fresh food product. And if it's over the expiration date, most of them gonna throw it away. It's gonna be the leftover food. It's gonna be very wasteful, but actually it can be eatable. It's not. It still be good to eat. So this group of people, they are a group of people. They try to set the platform, digital platform, and create a connection with the hotel and also supermarket. They use this application to collect the waste leftover food from the supermarket and from the hotel, and then distribute all this leftover food to the poor people or maybe the people who need more food for them. So for this case, the application can be used to facilitate, can be used to enhance their capability to connect with the hotel and the supermarket. And this one can be used to reduce the quality of the waste and leftover quantity of the waste and leftover food. So this one is the case that social innovation can solve the problem that relate to the society. Another one that I would like to show is the same idea, but apply in the different kind of waste. This one is the recycle waste. The name of the project is the Recycle Day. Is an application for trading recycle waste in the community. Because the recycle waste is quite different from the food waste. Because for the food waste, if it's already be waste, you have to throw it away, or maybe leftover. No one want to buy it anymore. But for the recycle waste, it still have the value because they have the business that try to buy the recycle waste and recycle them into a new material or new product. But the problem is the household cannot connect to the waste seller easily. Sometimes they separate the waste in their home, but they don't know how to manage or to handle with the recycle waste. So this platform try to connect with the community and try to connect them with the seller. The platform used the application software in order to connect the buyer to the seller together. The seller can identify that where to collect the recycle waste. So the buyer can come to visit at their home, knock their house, and collect the recycle waste. And they can the seller can get the money from the recycle waste as well. So this is the case that technology can improve the way that we live together and the way that we gonna make the value from the recycle waste. I would like to show another one. This one is the platform as well, but they use with the community for some community that rely on the tourism. The name of the platform is Travel. It's a community travel guide platform. Basically, the platform is try to collect the information about the local area and set up as a one-day trip information. So when the tourists come to the area, they can get information related to the area that they visit and know what to do, can plan or design the program of the travel of them in that area. So this is another case. So as you can see that we have many opportunities, and digital technology is one of the tools that can enhance our capability to connect with the community and to solve the problem of the society as well. So for this round.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chaton, for these interesting examples of how social innovation in this case can address those pertinent challenges that you talked about, ranging from food waste to recycle waste, and also when it comes to community traveling. Let me now ask our next panelist, Professor Oraon, to come in to share with us a few examples on how she sees the role of innovation in tackling some of the key pertinent challenges that our society faces today. Professor Oraon, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lalita. I like to stress the areas that I have been following, which is the public sector area. And even though the idea of digitalization and the use of technology is not new in the world, especially for private sector, but I think in Thailand's public sector, due to COVID, it has become the accelerator for the adoption of technology. So for me, I would categorize the whole shift in the mindset of public sector people in Thailand in the past year or two to be able to work from home, to understand the idea of work from anywhere, to understand and also accept the idea of online meetings and sending paper in PDF files and sending emails for communication. For me, of course, this is not novel technology, but it's novel in the sense of the adaptation of it in the Thai public sector. So we see all kinds of changes in the past year in, for example, attending online meetings that you could still be receiving remuneration based on such attendance and so on. And all this, of course, we hope it will stick. I hope it will stick. I think with the new shift, this has allowed for Thailand, which is quite known to be quite centralized, hierarchical. The bureaucracy seems to be in a lot of red tape, and also it's like a black box. We're often not sure how decisions are made. But this has allowed the whole space to open up. So we're seeing academics like me having meetings like this, of course, in conferences. But then we see many academics now having meetings with different ministries in Thailand online. Many of the meetings could be recorded. It could be live on Facebook, like this conference. So it really, I think, opens up the flat world that we have been waiting for in Thailand, so that citizens, stakeholders can engage real time together, and also to break this centralized nature of everything. We have to go to Bangkok. No, everything could be anywhere because we're adopting and adapting to this new circumstance. So I think for me, for the Thai public sector, this has been an innovation that has been accelerated by the COVID. I like to give another example, and this one we've been working very closely with NIA, Dr. Chayaton's team. This is also an example of process innovation. We've been working with NIA for over 2 years now to conduct future skills training to the public sector of Thailand. So we're introducing strategic foresight, the idea of planning and thinking ahead 10 years, 20 years, 50 years through a structured way of analysis, and also putting together the creativity and the imagination. which I think is very novel and new for the public sector again, where always the logical side, the data side has been emphasized, but much less on the creativity side and the imagination side, and to look very, very far ahead into the future. So all this to me are process innovations that Thailand is slowly beginning to adopt. And I think it's an important process to help shift entire cultures, cultures that have not focused on the future so much, to start focusing on the future. So those are my two examples. Thank you, Lobita.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Urako. I mean, we hear you loud and clear regarding how COVID has actually accelerated the role of digitalization in the public sector. And also you talked about the use of foresight when it comes to looking at future skill set and using process innovation as part of that journey. Let me now pass on the floor to our next panelist, Concrete. Over to you, Concrete, to share with us a few examples from your own experience about how innovation can tackle development challenges.
Well, thank you, Rovisha. My example would be the One Baht bonds sold through the Sobamall wallet. It is a purpose-built e-wallet for purchasing government saving bond that we developed together with the Public Debt Management Office using blockchain technology. It is integrated in our Paotang application, and you can manage bond within the app. So it's quite easy to use. So you can make a purchase, check how many saving bond you have in real time without having any, and to keep any paper certificates. Receive interest, receive the principal in the e-wallet upon bond maturity, or sell them into the secondary market. This has disrupted and completely changed the process of saving bond sales and its accessibility. Before the launch of the e-wallet, buying bond wasn't easy. You had to physically go to the bank branch, and the process could take up to 15 days. So that's what very inconvenient for the people living in the remote area, although they find it difficult to travel, or simply don't want to travel to bank branch. Bank staff also often keep this bond for their premium clients, so it's something anyone could buy. But now with the e-wallet, anyone living anywhere can purchase bond on their mobile phone. The process time is reduced from 15 days to real time, thanks to blockchain technology, I would say. Another issue is that the traditional bond sale have a high face value, usually 1,000 baht per unit. The reason that the face value had to be high was the high administrative cost involved. But with the blockchain technology, the cost is lower, so the face value can be lowered to only 1 baht per unit, resulting to the fact that people now access to the government bond saving is quite easily. The 1 baht bond was very well received by the public. We sold the first batch in June last year, and 200 million baht bonds were sold out within 99 seconds. That's amazing, isn't it? The second and the third batch of the 1 baht bond also continue to be sold on this platform. So far, bonds worth about 10.2 billion baht have been sold to the people across the country, with the youngest subscriber being 15 and the oldest being 83. So age doesn't matter for technology. Shifting the sale from the paper-based to the digital sales on the blockchain-based system contribute to the development of the sustainability in several ways. The bond sale in the apps, are paperless, so which is good for the environment. In terms of reducing social inequality and promoting the social sustainability, the shorter and easier process, as well as low face value, have encouraged people to save money by investing in low-risk government saving bond. And giving the people easy access to the suitable financial products means they are financially inclusive, which would help them to build good financial health and reduce poverty in the society. It also promotes digital literacy as it encourages people to do bank transactions in the apps. And most importantly, it is high transparent and secure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Concrete, for sharing with us this very interesting example of how You have used, in this case, blockchain technology to issue public saving bonds, which has been not just a transparent process and cost efficient, but also, as you said, a very important component or process leading to financial inclusion. Last but not least, let me, for this round of the panel discussion, invite Kunnavi to also share with us some examples from his own experience. Kunnavi, the floor is yours.
For the local communities, we do not require complicated solutions. We require simple and adequate solutions so that communities can be self-reliant in terms of innovation. And our work has been expanded in terms of promoting social innovation in many areas all over Thailand. There are two examples that I would like to raise. First one is a tool called Look Like a Bicycle to climb up coconut trees. You might heard the news of, let's say, coconut milk products in Thailand that have been banned because using the monkeys to pick up coconuts. Practically, we do not use the monkeys to pick up coconuts. This is the tool designed for safety and reduce accident for farmers, and is portable easily and with the very low cost 1,800 baht only. It can be easy assembled and also reduce the fatigue, and you can use for reaping or harvest all kind of fruits like the coconuts or palm. Some hotels might want to buy this tool in order to really cut off some of the unwanted leaves. The main customer group are farmers. The innovator is in Surin, but most customers are in the south with a lot of coconut farms, or even the coconut milk exporter. They order 1,000 sets of these tools. This innovation will help tackling the problem in a simple way with the low cost, respond to the demand of communities. And the second example, this is the, let's say, the spray in order to repel mosquitoes. And usually the Tambon administrative organization, they're gonna have something like or 2 or 3 big spraying machine that the farmers have to carry over their backs and spend about 2-3 weeks in order to really get rid of mosquitoes. So there are the local volunteers invent these simple tools and distribute. Let's say in this sub-district, they have 800 households, so they'll manufacture 80 sets, and the each volunteer will take care of 10 households. In the past, they might have to spend 2 or 3 weeks to get rid of mosquito. Now they spend only 1 week with much lower cost than the traditional tool for get rid of mosquitoes. They develop many versions. First, let's say they don't have to care the Tambon administrative organization anymore, and then they try to make the tool smaller. So this is a really big hit for the volunteers that want to spray these mosquito repellent chemicals. And then let's say that this smaller version is so popular and make the people in remote areas can spray in their household or spray to cover a few households. The main point of this example is that to make innovation, communication innovation accessible and fun, and then it will be replicated easily. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kunnavi. I hear you when it comes to sharing with us simple solutions. This is how you call them. Simple solutions for communities to build their self-reliance, and giving us some very interesting example with regard to the use of coconut and also on the mosquito repellent. Thank you for this. The third round of this panel discussion is actually going to focus on the Leave No One Behind agenda. And we all know by now that the Leave No One Behind agenda is at the core of the Sustainable Development Goals, and also innovation plays a very important and critical role when it comes to reaching those furthest left behind. And I think we've already seen this in a few examples that our panelists have been sharing with us. But we also know that this cannot happen automatically. Obstacles to the deployment of appropriate technology vary across countries and communities and also across different SDG areas. So to all our panelists today, we would like to hear from you how we can actually ensure that various technological solutions and innovations serve to bring benefits to all and leave no one behind in that process. What actions do you think can be taken to address the issue of digital divide and existing inequalities in access to technology and innovation? So for this round of the panel discussion, I would like to first of all invite Professor Oraon to take the floor. Professor, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I have 2 points. The first is that many people, when they talk to me or consult with me about digital divide, especially through the lens of public services, they often are worried that what about those without smartphones? What about those without Wi-Fi? Wouldn't such application, for example, marginalize them? Okay? So my answer always is this. First of all, put everyone on the digital platform who can be on the digital platform. Put everyone who has smartphones, who has Wi-Fi, to be receiving services through the digital platform by government. Then you will free up your time to then now focus on the marginalized. Okay, so for example, in the welfare card that the Ministry of Finance of Thailand has issued, right now there are over 10 million people who have subscribed to this card. And over the 10 million people, of course, there is inclusion error, where people who shouldn't be receiving such help or subsidy or cash transfer from government are receiving. Yes, there's inclusion error. However, we're also helping the many millions who are supposed to be receiving help. At the same time, now the government, especially the Ministry of Finance and ministries involved, they now can spend more time to manually help those who do not have access to the digital technology. So that's always been my answer. We need to digitalize. We need to adopt technology. Those who cannot or will be left behind, we need to put more of our time to ensure that they are not left behind. So my point is about the time, not about the technology. Second, I want to highlight that for me, I think to have inclusive technological solutions, we have to think of the ownership of the technology and also the ownership specifically of the data generated by the services. I'm thinking of examples such as from the UK, where there is the app called Just Park, where people who have their private spaces that's enough for parking can just come on this app to say, hey, you can park in my garage. Hey, you can park in front of my house. It could be a school, it could be a hospital, it could be a hotel, it could be apartments. Anywhere that there's empty spaces for parking could be shared. And so the data of that, the sharing of the income of that is inclusive to me, as opposed to parking applications that are owned by one company, where we see in other countries perhaps, when you have one company creating multi-story parking lots and then having apps for people to book parking spaces. Such kind of technology, when you look at the ownership, it actually leads to monopolies. However, having said all of this, I don't think parking space, of course, is the solution, especially if we think about climate change and we want to for people to not actually use their private cars. Another example again showing ownership and data and creating incentives for people to share are CCTV cameras. In certain countries, I believe it's in Japan that I followed, the CCTV cameras could be owned individually by the private person, or you could put it out, you could be a private hospital, again, private school, all kinds of spaces that would want to set up CCTV cameras for security reasons. However, the camera can also be pointed to public spaces that is acceptable, of course, and such images of the videos could be shared for people who would like to access and see, for example, to look at the weather in that city, or to look at certain, if the trash has been collected for the community, things like that. But all of these, again, does not need to be monopolized by one company, nor by one municipality, nor by one government agency. It could be shared investment, and the data could be co-owned with proper self-regulation, that everyone is safe. And that's a way to, I think, incentivize everyone to be part of socially responsible platforms going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Very interesting example that you've shared with us in the UK and also in the US. And you talked about inclusive technological solution, which is indeed what we are hoping to have more in the future when it comes to making sure that no one is left behind. Let me now pass on to Concrete. Concrete, tell us a little bit about how you see technological solutions being an asset when it comes to leaving no one behind. Over to you, Concrete.
Well, I would like to address this issue with the successful case of half-half scheme. In Thai, we call it Kola Krung. It is one of the government economic stimuli that the government used to help lower the living costs of moderate to low-income people and boost the domestic consumption to help small merchants survive during the economic slump due to the spread of COVID-19. As we already have the Baotang and Thungngan application, we use them as a tool to implement this scheme. Here is how the half-half scheme works. People receive 3,000 baht financial aid from the government, but just like the name suggests, it can be only used for paid half of the bill. So when people buy things, the government pay half of the bills and the people pay the rest out of their own pocket. The first is hands out, and all the payment transactions are done at innovative Baotang and Thungngan mobile application, which has been developed by Krung Thai Bank to be open platform. The scheme has been a huge success so far. Let's take a look at some number here. During the first and the second phase of the scheme, it attracts over 15 million individual customers to download Baotang application and 1.5 million merchants to download Thungngan application. It's generated over 300 million transactions, totaled at over 100 billion baht, with 52 billion baht out of the customer pocket and 49 billion baht government subsidy. That means the amount of the money injected into the economy, which boosts domestic consumption, double the budget that the government spent on the scheme. Half-half phase 3 is just around the corner at this time. Up to 31 million people and 2 million merchants will benefit from the relief package and also digital experience on the Baotang and Thungngan apps. It is the win-win-win situation here. The first win is that the people register for the scheme get some extra money to buy things during the hard time caused by the pandemic and its consequence. The second win, merchants get more income because they spend more money. And the third win, the government can spend its budget wisely to help vulnerable people and severely affected people. With the people paying their half, the result of the scheme double the subsidy budget. Using the technology makes the implementation of COVID-19 relief scheme more efficient in many ways. Absolutely, we can control that the help would really go to the right target group. The registration process makes it possible to identify and help vulnerable people including the grassroots and informal worker. The merchant just also register so we can exclude large corporate retailer and chain restaurant from the scheme. So the help could be direct to the small and non-juristic merchant like street vendor, food stall, local shops, and non-juristic restaurant. This new model of financial aid hands out through the Paotang apps also minimize the risk of the fraud, corruption, and human error. The financial aid is transferred direct to the people registered instead of going through other entity where the risk of corruption might occur. Identity authentication features on the apps also prevent identity theft and ensure that the person benefiting from the relief aid is entitled to it. This also reduces administrative costs and bureaucratic procedure. So, how does this contribute to leaving no one behind principle? We deliver the government financial aid to our apps, Paotang and Thungan. They are open platform, and anyone with a smartphone can use our app, even though they are not our customer. As everything is done on the digital platform, this scheme has greatly increased the mobile payment adoption and digital literacy of the people in the country, including the grassroots population. Prior to that, many people were reluctant to use mobile payment for some reason, like privacy and security, or some people simply don't know how to get started. But this scheme, financial aids and selling opportunities are the incentive, and a lot of people got on board with the mobile payment. And staff at our branches also help people in the community with the registration and taught them how to use the app. So now these people can use mobile phone payment in their daily life and use the technology in their hands, transforming to the digital and cashless society. In the nutshell, it helped to reduce social inequality and promote social sustainability as well as financial inclusion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Concrete. This is really a very interesting example, which I think many countries can certainly benefit from and learn from Krung Thai Bank in terms of how we address not just, as you mentioned, social inequality, but also kind of creating a win-win, as you rightly said, not just for the users, but also for the merchants and also for the government. Thank you for sharing this example. Let me now ask Kun Navi to come in. Kun Navi, from your perspective, what do you think are some of the actions that need to be taken to address the digital divide and also some of those inequalities that we see in societies in terms of access to technology and innovation? Kun Navi, over to you.
Innovative technology must be created from community demand and don't expect that it's gonna be perfect overnight. The essence of developing community innovation is working together in an enabling environment for using innovation to tackle the problems, and we have to create to be aligned with the community behavior, community norms, so innovation created will respond to the community the most. I have one example that is a local technician in terms of really fixing and manufacture tractors. Most of the northeastern farmers, they are the elderly and they are left behind. The young generation, they move into the urban areas to work, so the elderly farmers, they are left at their houses. They have the agricultural machine, this kind of the tractor that might be left without being used because it uses a lot of physical force. This community technician learn from internet and they change this kind of manually operated tractor to become the tractor that can be easy to use with less physical force and with the lower cost, 3 times lower cost. The whole knowledge, this community technician, he learned about the tools, the engine from internet, YouTube, and other media. So the matter of digital divide for developing community technology, we may not have to make everyone to really have the equal digital literacy, but we need to create the system to link and equip the skills, let's say, for the people who are ready. So this is the matter of community technicians, that we transfer the knowledge to the new generation of technicians. So it will make the elderly farmers in the rural area will not be left behind. They will be proud. They can come back to work again, and they have better mental health and physical health. We are not the local people. We may not understand their lifestyle to support the community people to have innovation to solve their own problems should be supported. But there is no one size fit all solution. The external party may help support innovation, but I believe local communities should get opportunity to learn and develop their innovative potential to solve their own problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunnavi, for sharing with us this very noble example of how you have been leveraging on knowledge from the elderly community technicians and transferring that important knowledge and invaluable knowledge to the younger generation of new technicians, and at the same time with multiple benefits that you've mentioned, both to the elderly but also across the community as a whole. Last but not least, for this round of the panel discussion, I would like to invite Dr. Chayaton to share his perspective about the role that technology and innovation plays in addressing inequality and the Leave No One Behind agenda in Thailand. Over to you, Dr. Chayaton.
Yes, thank you. I really agree about the topic and also the information that our speaker mentioned, that accessibility to technology and innovation is quite important to solve the problem of inequality. But I would like to add some more another dimension about this topic as well, because when we talk about accessibility of technology and innovation, it's just from the user side, from maybe the customer side. But another point that we'd like to add is about the availability of the platform, technology, or innovation. Because sometimes even when people have capability or ability to access technology, but the company or maybe the platform, they not have capability to run in the long run or to available for the long run. I think that's one is quite the problem for the social innovation. Basically, when we talk about social innovation, many people thought that donation is the only way to finance the project for the vulnerable groups. But I would like to show the case of this company. The company provide the platform called Buddy Home Care. It's a management system for monitoring and taking care of senior people. For the company, they qualify themselves as social enterprise. So I think that's quite important to adopt or to implement the social enterprise approach to the innovation project, especially social innovation project. Because for the social innovation, they look at their business as something that to maximize the profit while maximizing benefit to the society and the environment as well. For the case of Buddy Home Care or BHC, the feature of the platform is the BHC is a care service platform aiming to solve dual problem: the problem about rising of the senior and also the problem about the unprivileged youth. This platform implemented in the northern part of Thailand since 2015. So the platform BHC, they provide the program, training program that certify for the youth or low income adult come to join and learn from the training program 3 months, and then they got certificates and gonna be listed in the platform. The course design has been designed by the Faculty of Nurse, Chiang Mai University. So this one is the opportunity of the unprivileged youth or low-income adults. And then when they have been listed in the platform, the BSc application can be used to support remote healthcare monitoring. So the licensed caregiver that come from maybe the huge tribe low-income adult, they can go to the customer and give them the health care, and all this care provided to the customer will be get the pay, and sometimes when they get the profit from the platform, they can use all this profit and hiring and all the caregiver to taking care of people with low incomes as well. For this case, the key success factor is the first one, technology that allow them to create a platform that meet the variety needs of customer. And the second one, by offer both paid and charitable service, they make the program cost effective and sustainable way to run. So I think that is another point that I would like to add about how to think about the social innovation project as a social enterprise, not just a donation project.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Dr. Chayato. An interesting example of how, in this case, you've used a social enterprise approach to implementing a social innovation project, in this case, for the example of the Buddy Home Care. We will now move on to another round of this panel conversation, and here we would like each of our panelists to respond with a specific question based in particular on their background, but also the sectors that you all represent. So I would like to start with Concrete, to you. The first question to you, Concrete, is how can we use digital technology to address financial inclusion issues and make them more readily available to those who need it? I realize you've already touched upon that in your previous conversation, but if you can also perhaps share with us another example, that would be great. Over to you, Concrete.
I think the biggest benefit of using digital technology to address financial inclusion issue is that it is scalable and can easily impact millions of people with high efficiency and transparency. It also eliminates obstacles such as fraud, corruption, and unnecessary administrative and bureaucratic procedure. Look at the one-baht bond, for example. Anyone can now buy government saving bonds because they can do it easily on mobile phone in real time, and it is not that expensive anymore, so more people are financially inclusive. This would not have been possible without the Baotang application and all the digital technology behind. Another example is the half-half scheme that I mentioned earlier. Apart from the short-term economic boost, the half-half scheme has set up a digital foundation for the country. We are at the World War now, but not the World War where nations fight against one another, but a war where the world battle against the COVID-19. Things will never be the same again. We are now living in the new normal where social distancing has become the norm. Customer behavior have completely changed, and technology is now very crucial. We use this as an opportunity to establish digital infrastructure in Thailand, accelerate digital adoption of the people, and use technology to drive the economy and country forward. More and more people were introduced to the mobile payment and other technology through this government scheme and their hands-on experience of using the mobile banking. We are preparing them so that they are ready for the economic recovery. Thailand 4.0 and the new normal after COVID-19, which will very likely be extremely technology-driven, I would say.
Much Concrete. Let me now ask Kunnavi to come in. Kunnavi, if you can share with us your experience in collecting different sources of knowledge, including local and indigenous knowledge, to increase the resilience to climate change. And how can you identify which solutions usually are working and worth scaling up? And perhaps as part of the same question, when implementing those solutions, how would you, from your experience, identify and reach out to those furthest behind? Kunavi, over to you.
I have another example that I have worked with that I like to share with you in terms of sharing knowledge, wisdom, and also to adapt to climate change. This is the community of using exchange the leaves with manure in the north part of Thailand. There is a problem of the haze because of burning the agricultural waste, because they need to really use the land for farming again. And this community is composed of farmers who do the longang mango farms. They cut off a lot of leaves, and usually in the past they burn this agricultural waste, but because of they are aware of the environmental impact and they have the local wisdom to really make the organic fertilizer and manure. So they came up with this machine in order to mix the manure and with the concept of exchanging the leaves that they don't use anymore with the organic fertilizer. So all of those agricultural waste, more than 50 households of farmers, they collect all of this agricultural waste to exchange with the organic fertilizer or manure that actually is made of all of those left leaves. So the farmers can reduce the cost of production and stop the open air burning in their farming land. So this traditional or local wisdom is like the raw materials to really produce the innovation and to identify what kind of social innovation is effective, should be expanded, and should promote for more accessibility. Usually in our social enterprise, we have two tools. First is the social impact assessment, or SIA, to really evaluate the social impact of the activities or enterprises that work on solving the social problems. We can see the change. And another tool is the social return on investment, or SROI, to evaluate the social return in the quantitative basis. We can see the financial number. That's all. Thank you.
Very much for sharing with us yet another example of how you have used local wisdom in addressing some of the problem. In this case, you talked about agricultural waste in the north. To you, Kun Oraon, Professor, from your experience and your perspective, what in your view are the key elements that Thailand may need to take into account when formulating action plans or roadmaps for innovation in support to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals? And what would be your recommendation to policymakers and policymaking when it comes to creating an enabling environment for innovation to achieve the SDGs? Professor, over to you.
Yes, thank you. So I think my answer will be a little bit, I'll try to keep it short because there's so much to say when we are thinking about the big systemic, size of the Thai government and how we can do better for achieving sustainable development goals. Number one, I think public sector employees need to learn the SDGs. I'm not very confident, but I am guessing that 90% of public sector employees in Thailand do not even know what SDGs are. So that's the first and foremost important goal we need to achieve, which is to raise awareness. Number two, I see that the public sector has 5 approaches that they can choose. that they could choose if they intentionally choose. But right now, many of the public sector agencies are working on automatic mode. So the 5 approaches are, number 1, very strong leadership, focusing on obedience and loyalty based. Number 2, hierarchical focus, law-based, rule-based, issue a lot of laws and a lot of rules and regulations. Number 3 is market-based, focusing on the results that we actually want without, mining so much about the processes involved, but looking at the results. But number 4 is network-based, which is allowing for the different networks that exist in society to come together, to work together, focusing on the relationships built, the trust built in their work, very much related to what Kunnavi has been explaining to us, how people work in communities on the ground. And number 5, and this is the 5th approach that I like to focus, which is on the multi-levelness of all of this. We can mix and match all of that, all the 4 above. And what's more important, we should actually focus on the goal of sustainability and justice-based outcomes. Right now, I think many governments are struggling to shift, from the market-based to this justice-based and sustainability-based outcomes. Now, how can we do that? I have 7 points that relate to the innovation and research system of Thailand as it is now. So number 1, multi-year grants needs to be approved. Right now, Thailand still functions as annual budgets. And most of these innovations require, as you said, we need to experiment, we need to fail, we need to improve, we need to look at it as cycles of longer term than 1 year. So the budgeting has to match that. Number 2, we need to divide very clearly between consultancy or commissioned research than independent research, because I think innovation could be hijacked by people who have more money, more resources, and then the R&D could continue to enforce or continue to support the structurally unequal Thailand that we live in today. So I think it's very important to support independent research and innovation that comes out of people's true needs to innovate without the pressure from the big players in the market. Number 3, the regulatory ecosystem. I think it needs to be much more self-regulation based rather than government regulation. There needs to be procedural justice in terms of how we fund and how we manage all kinds of innovations. We need to have innovation-friendly rules. We need to simplify processes as well for the innovation and research. Number 4, for empowerment ecosystem, I think we need to redesign the incentive structure for innovation today. Right now, it's not catered for projects like what Kunnavi was saying, the people on the ground, the people who can have simple innovations. The system, there's a mismatch there. I think the procurement process could be very much the driver of green technology. Thailand is not using its government procurement process in that direction enough. The idea of social innovation mentioned by Dr. Chayathorn needs to be well known and made aware of for everyone, because right now the word innovation also is still, many people only look at technology and not the social aspect. 5 is the facilitation of the ecosystem. And I think this is the role of the government that is not about building the infrastructures for a good ecosystem of innovation, but actually becoming a good facilitator of the existing infrastructures. And I mean both physical infrastructure, such as maker spaces, co-working spaces, all kinds of labs, scientific labs that exist, both within the private sector and the public sector. And I include the labs in the military, Ministry of Defense as well. All kinds of these labs should be made known and shared. That's the physical space. But I like to focus also on the digital space. I'm talking about digital images, digital data of all kinds, e-infrastructures, archives, making the yellow pages of data, the different categories of the data that government owns. All of this is so urgent for Thailand, and this will allow for what I call hyper-customization of public services. And including with the digital infrastructure, I like to also put in here that we need a large-scale revamp of the National Library. I'm referring specifically to the case of Singapore, where they have a very, very strong national library that has all the ebooks, all the databases that their citizens can access. Their citizens could be anywhere, not just in Singapore, and that allows not just the average citizens, but also the SMEs, the social enterprises, the private sector, to access good information, sound research-based information that they can then build on. So I think libraries, the ebooks, the databases should be seen as basic utility, just like water and electricity and public transport that any government should provide, because you can do the economies of scale by having large infrastructure like that for any society. Last but not least, the seventh point is the human capital. I think Thailand still can do so much in having a comprehensive human capital planning system. Currently, right now, it's very fragmented. And so with that, I think going forward, we can do much more in this innovation and research space. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I realize that this is not an easy question to answer in 2 minutes, but thank you for highlighting those 7 action points for policymakers. Lastly, our last panelist for this round is Dr. Chayathorn. Dr. Chayathorn, from the National Innovation Agency and your own experience, what are some of the challenges today when it comes to designing or implementing more inclusive innovation policies and strategies? And what is your organization doing in terms of addressing these challenges? Over to you, Dr. Chayathorn.
Yes, okay, thank you. I think when we talk about social issue or social challenge, I think they are a correction of problem in the context. So in case of Thailand, we have 76 provinces. So at least we have 76 contexts to explore. That's why the top-down policy sometimes is not work to solve the social problem, because some top-down policy try to implement to all the province and treat them as the same characteristic, the same context. So the way that NIA try to do in the case of social innovation, NIA work with the social innovation driving units. They call them SID. Basically, they are technology licensing unit of the university in the local area. So this one provide the connection from the supply side, university side, to transfer the knowledge to the demand side, community, or maybe the society. And all these SID have a crucial role to provide contextualized solution. They know well because they are university at the local area. They know very well about the context. They know what is the root cause of the context, and we encourage them to try to provide the solution that fit to the context, and also provide the technical knowledge transfer to the community, to the people in the context as well, in order to make the local stakeholder and community learn about the technology, have the knowledge about the solution. And then when the innovation, social innovation that have been proven in the area, we can analyze it and try to promote and diffuse it to other areas that have the similar problem. But maybe it cannot fit 100%, but they have to learn and try to apply. But they can learn from the list that have been proved already. And for the good practice and the enabling condition that need to enabling the solution in the area, it's going to be explored and developed as a policy recommendation. So the way that NIA do to promote social innovation, we working with the local community, local area. Local collaboration is quite important because we believe that social issue and social challenge is something that need to be contextualized. And then we can find the proven solution. We use that one to promote and try to develop policy recommendation from the proven solution. That is the NA do for this topic.
Good, thank you, Dr. Chayathorn, for sharing that. I realize we are running a little bit late for this session. We are now coming close to the last round of this session, and a question which is actually very close to our heart for UNDP and extremely important as we move to actually operationalize the work of the Accelerator Lab in Thailand. I think we all know that Thailand has a very rich ecosystem of innovation, and we have many active players. We've heard it already from both the public and the private sector here in terms of engaging on the innovation agenda. So what we would like to hear from each of you is what do you think could be the value addition of UNDP's Accelerator Lab to this existing ecosystem in Thailand? And who would you recommend us and the lab, most importantly, to reach out to and work with so that we can scale our work together and be able to address many of those development challenges we have heard earlier in a collective and participatory manner. So let me ask first Professor Oraon to come in to give us your perspective, Professor.
Yes, thank you very much. So I think UNDP would already be doing this, and I just emphasize working closely with key government officials or government agencies such as NESDC and also Ministry of Finance, also the Public Sector Development Commission, and other agencies like Ministry of Interior. I think working with the local governments through the Ministry of Interior or through the associations of local governments of Thailand would help disseminate the information very fast. Last but not least, of course, we're happy to work with the Accelerator Lab as the School of Public Policy to help leverage anything that you would like to do in the north or around the country. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Professor. Let me now ask Dr. Chayathorn to come in to tell us his perspective of how he sees the role of the Accelerator Lab in Thailand.
Actually, I think for NAA and UNDP, we have been working together for maybe a couple of years. And I think the Acceleration Lab could be another initiative that gonna be beneficial to both of us. The first point, I think, as I mentioned, NAA have a connection with the local university, and we also set up the SID. In that sense, I think NAA can provide some information and connection for the local expertise to the Acceleration Lab. And also, Acceleration Lab can provide international expertise and also international connection that connect from the new knowledge from other countries to Thailand as well. And in another area, I think in some specific issue, we can collaborate to co-design some project in the area to find some solution that can be effective for the local community and for the Thai society as well. I think that's it's a key area that we can work together in order to try out and to make social innovation rising in Thailand.
NIA is a long-standing partner of UNDP, and when we look forward to definitely collaborate as we move forward with the work of the AC Lab. Let me now ask Kunkrit to come in. Kunkrit, if you can also share with us your perspective of the role of the lab and the partnership between the bank and the lab.
Well, as the government is currently attempting to drive the economy through the S-curve industry, and businesses are accelerating their innovation development, it is important that they are aware of the global challenge and SDG, and they should consider this issue in their strategy as well, so that the innovation does not only make the profit for the business, but also solve the global challenge simultaneously. I think UNDP Accelerator Lab should be the center of every stakeholder, including public and private sector, startup, SME, NGO, social enterprise, academia, think tanks, and intergovernmental organizations to come together and solve global challenge. Another group of people you need to engage is local communities that have local wisdom and grassroots innovation that Gunavi have already mentioned. With good support and mentorship, They could build upon the grassroots innovation to improve and scale up, and the outcome will be significant. You could provide people with a place where you can share the best practice, knowledge, skill, capacity, and experience. It will be in the form of events, meeting, conference, or incubation programs where people can have meaningful interaction. This dynamic setting is a good start for participants to collaborate more in the future. In addition, you can also create an alliance in Asia Pac where people can work collectively. But the main problem is continuity. You have to make sure that this lab will last long with a great supporting elements. As for you should reach out to, I suggest you can work with the local government in terms of shaping policy. The technical assistance, how-to, and experience are valuable contribution that local governments in this region needs. Last but not least, I would like to emphasize that sustainability development is an issue that is highly relevant to all of us, and it is everyone's responsibility. Innovation and technology are powerful tools to speed and scale up the development. So the question is, how can we leverage innovation to create a sustainable society and a better life for everyone? That's why it's great to have a forum like this where we can discuss and share the experience. So I think that it could lead to some great and innovative ideas to make the world we live in better. Thank you.
Thank you, Concrete. An important takeaway I'm taking from your intervention here is to make the lab the center of every stakeholder in Thailand. Thank you for saying that to us. Last but not least, let me pass on the floor now to Kun Navi. Kun Navi, if you can tell us how you see the Accelerator Lab and its role in Thailand.
ครับ I think UNDP Accelerator Lab should help in 3 areas. First area to participate in connect and create the enabling environment of working together among agencies on developing innovation, especially for communities. Currently, many agencies may design, create innovation and give to the communities to implement. And let's say that you should try to encourage communities to create their own communities. UNDP might help. Second area to exchange the learning of the innovation from other communities all over the world. I talk with many community technicians. They got many idea, knowledge, and techniques not from Thailand. They watch the overseas video clips and YouTube from other areas. So it's important that we need to learn from other regions in the world. And the third area to support the work horizontally among all the local administrative organizations, local social enterprises. They should be able to connect their work together horizontally by focusing on creating partnership, joint venture, or close coordination in communities through various mechanisms to create concrete innovation among all the local people or local organizations. So the community innovation should be created according to community capacity that will respond to the demand and the uniqueness of each community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kun Navi. With this round, we've come to the end of this panel discussion. I will not even attempt to summarize the many ideas and suggestions and inspirational examples that our panelists have given us. I think we've heard a lot of great examples here, which we can definitely, all of us and then colleagues who are online, get inspired from. And all I can say is that you know, for the ACT Lab and the work of the ACT Lab to be successful, we cannot be alone. And I think I'm hearing many of our panelists calling on us, calling on collaboration, calling on partnership, so that together and collaboratively we can make an impact and a difference. So this is not just to the organizations that our panelists represent, this is to all our partners with whom we are working with currently, and new other partners who perhaps we haven't really reached out, but we will, to make sure that the Accelerator Lab and the work and the solutions and the development challenges that we are trying to address becomes a success. And as we started off this conversation, we talked about how innovation is critical as an important element for a sustainable and inclusive Thai society, which is exactly what we as UNDP and through the Accelerator Lab will aim to do in partnership with all of you. So with that, let me thank again our panelists, Professor Oraon, Dr. Chayathon, Kun Krit, and Kun Nabi. Thank you so much for being with us today and spending, sorry about that, for more than 1 hour, but I hope our audience will appreciate the time and some of the important and interesting ideas and suggestions that you have shared with us today. Thank you, and Kapunka.
Thank you very much, Lovita, and our 4 panelists. After this interesting panel discussion, we will transition to the key reflection on the next step by Dr. Suriyon Thankipjanukit, a senior advisor to the Office of National Economic and Social Development Council, known as the NESDC. Handing over to you, Dr. Suriyon.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy that I have the opportunity to attend this meeting, the launch of the UNDP Accelerator Lab with all of you. On behalf of NESDC, I must say that I am really impressed with the cases, the evidence, the discussion, and the recommendation that you all presented here. I think they are very rich in terms of content, and it make me afraid that the one who will be left behind are the government officials like us in the government agencies around the country. The changes that you initiated and pursued are very productive in terms of country development. It makes me hopeful that if the government mechanism doesn't work properly, at least we have private sector, academia, and civil sector to carry out the public goods and public works productively. So it made me hopeful about that too. Looking to the future, I think we still have the obligation to carry through this transformation process. The pandemic of COVID-19 made us it's a crisis, okay, but it made us a great opportunity to make a leap forward in terms of transformation of our economy and our government system. I think the coming of the UNDP Accelerator Lab provide us with a legitimacy and opportunity for the government of Thailand to embark upon the changing program, the transformation of our public policy process, and in order to respond to the SDG goal, which we have committed very succinctly. Okay, there are about few more points that I think we need to concentrate for the next 3 years. First is about how to empower the government official about new tools, new methodologies, new process in formulating policy, public policy, so that it will be more responsive to the needs of the people. Make the policy mechanism in Thailand to be more, responsive and care for the need of the people. I think we need a lot of that. Also, we need to, build an army of change agents. I would say that. I would like to say that
we would like to build an army of Gen agents. They are the people who graduated from public administration curriculum in higher education institution in Thailand, like National Institute of Development Agency, Administration, Thammasat University, Chulalongkorn University, whatever major university in Thailand that you can name of. So training the trainers, training the university lecturer who produce this graduate are very important to make the change across the country and across the system possible. Okay, so we need to focus also on getting a new partner from agency, from universities, even from public sector and local government to embark upon this change process. Personally, this transformation of the public policy process, in another name we call it TP Lab, is what I have been waiting for about maybe 20 years. Since I have been working at the senior level with the NESDC, I saw from many cases, from many phenomena that we really need to change the public policy process. We really need to change the mindset of the government official and also the process that they are working in the government. Otherwise, we cannot use our resource productively to attain the goal of development. And now we are imposed by also the international community to achieve not just the development goal of the country, but also the development goal of the world, like SDG. Okay, so finally, I don't have much to add on the richness of the discussion in this forum. I think it's very useful, very insightful for me further. I can only confirm that from the NESDC standpoint of view, we really commit to this change process. We have enough financial resources. We have not so much time or people, human resource to carry out this, but we have a very potential partners, especially UNDP, to help us go through and carry through this transformation process. So I'm looking forward to hearing or participating in this kind of forum more in the future. And thank you for the participation of all participants here. Thank you, UNDP, for allowing us the opportunity to embark upon the big transformation process like this. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suryon, for your reflection on the next step of implementing inclusive policy. So now we will hear the closing remarks by His Excellency Mr. George Schmidt, the German Ambassador to Thailand. Mr. Schmidt, with respect, I am handing over to you.
Well, thank you very much. And it was very interesting to listen to remarks. I hope the audio connection works. Albert Einstein once said that the true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. And I think there's a lot of imagination already from the remarks that I heard so far. And the lab is a place where scientists test their ideas. They don't know the solutions already, but they test their ideas and they check the results and they falsify. In German, we often use the word we err forward. And I'm very glad that we are part and we can contribute to the support of this lab here, a global lab, because the SDGs are, it was said before, are global and they can only be reached by a global effort, so by all the countries together. Same applies, by the way, also for the pandemic. So one of the SDGs, climate change, if I look at it
like Germany has been the largest partner of Thailand in climate change, and many things that were said for this lab now is actually how we try to cooperate with Thailand also in climate change, not telling, oh, this is how it's been done, but making an offer and saying, this is what we do in Germany, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, and try to actually adapt it to the local circumstances. And if I look at Rice Nama and all this, this includes local knowledge. So I was impressed by the contributions also from the communities, because they know what's best there. We also in Germany, we have very good ideas and trying these new ideas in different formats. It's not a top-down master plan that relies on state investments and all this, but it's a lot on market solutions. And what I listened to is there was one particular aspect that it was not just market-driven, but justice-driven. I think that's an important remark that was made just earlier. One example for us, we're supporting solar energy by an auction system. So the bidder there and the one who wins is actually the one who asks for the lowest subsidy. So this is an idea that came out from a different way of looking at things. And the whole energy transition that we try to embark on in Germany is only possible with the support and with the creativity of many, many participants. For instance, we have small-scale solar rooftops now. We have citizens who engage in trading by themselves. So it's very much small is beautiful approach, if I use that phrase by Schumpeter. We have committed ourselves to a very ambitious transformation. When it comes to energy, it's very important for one of the SDGs, and it ties in with the larger general goal that we have, the set of goals. And it's very, very encouraging to hear how much creativity there is in Thailand. And one of my predecessors just said government services have to be, we have to be careful that we're not the ones who be left out. And I can only conclude that it is very important not to be left out. It's important government should set the rules, but if it were that easy that governments knew where developments are going to go, then everybody would be a successful entrepreneur. So I think governments should set the rules that include externalities and others, and should look into the SDGs as a general overall framework, national, but also global, but then let local creativity take care of the rest of it. And to come back to creativity, encouraging creativity starts at a very early age. And it makes a huge difference whether teachers actually encourage students to ask questions, to question them on the basis, on good knowledge, but not just repeating, memorizing. Asking questions is a very normal thing, and it's the beginning of all science. So that's why I chose the quote by Albert Einstein, that it's not about knowledge. You need knowledge in science, yes, but you need a lot of imagination. UNDP Accelerator Lab. Once again, congratulations to UNDP Thailand for launching this activity, and I'm very proud that we can be part of the support team. We all need your ideas, and I wish you all the success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt, for your contribution. Next up, Mrs. Aisha Al-Kulaifi, Charge d'Affaires at Interim of the Embassy of the State of Qatar in Thailand, will address the closing remarks on behalf of His Excellency Ahmed Ali Al-Tamimi, the Ambassador of the State of Qatar to the Kingdom of Thailand. I pass the word over to you.
Thank you. I wish to thank the residence representative of the UNDP Thailand for this kind invitation to speak on this occasion on behalf of His Excellency Mr. Ahmed Ali Al-Tamimi, Ambassador of the State of Qatar in Thailand, who is on special leave in Doha. The government of Qatar have made possible investment of UNDP's core capacity and for their support. To our cutting-edge Accelerator Labs, an initiative with cooperation of the Federal Republic of Germany. The Qatar Fund for Development's main goal is inclusive and sustainable development. This partnership with UNDP is a great step towards achieving this goal, and we are proud to collaborate with such an important partner on bridging the humanitarian development gap. The Qatar Fund for Development and the UN already have track record of delivering sustainable development and peace-building projects. We look forward to continue this collaboration with UNDP to address underlying risks and promote resilience wherever this support is most needed. We believe that these labs will transform the collective approach by introducing new services backed by evidence and practice, and by accelerating the testing and dissemination of solutions within and across countries. Once again, we thank you for this invitation, and be assured of the Embassy cooperation with the UNDP and with the Government of Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Aisha, for your closing remarks on behalf of the Ambassador. And I would like you to remain here first to do the launching ceremony with us. I would like to also invite High Excellency Mr. George Schmidt, the German Ambassador to Thailand, and Mr. Renaud Meyer, our resident representative of UNDP in Thailand, to do the launching ceremony all together. So now it is the time. The launching ceremony is now right here about to take place. There will be a countdown on the screen, counting down from 10 to 1. And then you, Mr. Schmidt, Mrs. Aisha, and Mr. Renaud, after counting down, you can press the button on the screen of your mobile phone to launch the Accelerator Lab of Thailand altogether. Is everyone ready? So we start counting now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you now can press the button. Thanks our esteemed representative and guests here again to share the important moment of introducing the Accelerator Lab of UNDP Thailand all together with us. On behalf of everyone in attendance, I would like to thank each and every participant to the launch event of the Accelerator Lab of Thailand, which aims to bring the innovative and inclusive solutions to Thai society, especially in the interesting times for all of us. The world now truly needs creativity and innovation from everyone to lead all of us to a sustainable future for all. Thank you. ขอบคุณค่ะ